What's going on, my fellow makers? Welcome back to Keep Making. Today I'm going to show you how I made this kill team of Eldar Baddies. Let's get to it. Okay, before we get into everything here, I just need to say beforehand that the camera angles in this video are not great. The focus goes in and out, and I apologize. We're working on the setup here, getting some new lenses, some new mounts so that I can record miniature painting better. That's why I usually don't do this. I usually stick to terrain and board builds, but I want to get more into mini painting on this channel because it's what I do mostly when I have hobby time. And yeah, so please excuse some of the poor shots on this video, and just know that in the future those will be better. And let's just get to it. So here are the models I used for this particular kill team. These are from Paul Scott Miniatures on my mini factory, and they're sweet. So let's get to it. So I printed off the files on my Eldar Mars, and now I can start getting them cleaned up. To do that, I'm scraping them off the base. Then I'm just going to clean them up in some isopropyl alcohol and then some hot water to get all the supports a little bit looser. Once they've soaked in that hot water, the supports are ready to peel right off, and the ones that aren't, I'll clean up with some nippers. The models have been all cleaned up and the supports are off. I can start curing them in my homemade cure chamber here. I'll put them on 5 minutes aside, and then we can start getting them ready for the paint job. Now to do the rock formations for these snowy bases, as you saw in the thumbnail, I'm going to use these glass shards from broken bottles. You can get a bunch of these at the dollar store, and all I'm doing is super gluing them onto the bases themselves, and then using some activator to speed up that process. Before I put these down with some super glue, I'm going to do a little bit of dry fitting, and once that's done, I'll come in for a final cleanup. Any of the weird areas from the supports, I'll get a final cleanup while these are still detached from the bases. So with some super glue, I can just attach these to the bases, the same method I used to put the rocks there in the first place, which is just super glue and then a little bit of activator to hold them in place. Now, the only model that wasn't 3D printed for this kill team is going to be this Scrya, I think it's called, from War Machine. This is a really cool model I've actually painted before, but albeit probably 3 or 4 years ago now. I really like the floating pose of this model. The only downside is it's a metal model, and both times I've assembled this model, it was a pain to get together. But I cleaned it up with some metal filing tools, going a little bit more abrasive than the sanding twigs I normally use, and then I can just start gluing it together. You might want to pin metal models if you're working with them, but I'm too lazy. So here's how the baddies are looking so far attached to the bases. Then I'm going to take them outside to prime them. Didn't get that on camera, but basically I'm just using a flat black primer from Army Painter, and here's how they looked after that. Then to really get the most out of this color shifting paint, as well as the contrast paints and speed paints I'm going to be using, I'm going to hit them with the zenithal. So using my airbrush, I'm spraying about 45 degrees above all around the model. This is really going to help bring out that color shifting paint. Now on top of that, I'm also going to go in with a cold right from Vallejo, and I'm going to dry brush this onto all the raised details. Again, this is going to help sell that color shift and bring out the details when I go on to use speed paints. So from there, I actually start going in with a Grim Black from Army Painter Speed Paint range. And we lost focus, but this is going all over the armor details as well as the jumpsuit. Then I'm going to come in and clean up all the kind of gems. Sorry 40k fans, I don't know what these are actually called on Eldar suits, but these kind of gem-esque things, I'm going to clean those back up because I don't want those to be dark. After that, I come in and paint the gun with a Hive Dweller purple from the Army Painter Speed range. And this changes later on, but this is the process, so I thought I'd show it here. Now, moving on to the color shifting. So this is a color shifting paint from Folk Art. So probably lower quality than some of the other ones on the market, but this works fine for me. What I do is I add a bunch of Flow Aid and then the Speed Paint Medium, and this really helps it go on in a smooth kind of transparent layer and lets those under layers shows and really affect the color that the paint is. So this goes on all of the previously black painted armor pieces. The reason why I painted them black before is because I wanted it to be more of that dark purple than the light green that this paint shifts into. So that'll show up a little bit later. So for the spiky bits on the Psyker and for this kind of captain with the helmet, this is where that green sort of shift will come. So because I did the dry brush and the zenithal, there's going to be a really cool effect with this color shifting paint up into this green to give this more of a weird kind of elven space magic feel. So as I alluded to before, I wasn't loving that purple. I think it was too similar to the armor color, so I went in with some Hull Red from Vallejo and gave it a base coat of that, and we'll come in and highlight that a little bit later. Moving back to the model, I'm going to do the rest of the jumpsuit pieces in straight flat black. And then for all those gem bits, I'm coming in with this turquoise color and laying down a base coat. Moving back to the weapons, I'm coming in with this flat red, again from Vallejo model color, and we're going to do the highlights. So I'm trying to keep this a little bit transparent, watering down the paint more than I did for the base coat, and I'll bring out some of these flatter areas and these details to give it a little bit more dimension. Now I also applied these same colors onto the cloak of the Psyker here, or the Seer, sorry, I guess that's what Eldar call them. And to differentiate between these two different textures, obviously I don't want this cloak to look like it's a big gun. I'm going to highlight this a little bit differently. So I'm doing a kind of cross-hatching pattern where I'm coming in at an angle. That'll sell the effect that this is like a fabric, opposed to the kind of straight or more practical approach I use to the weapon. So this will definitely sell a little bit more motion as I'm going with the folds of the cape, and then the texture as well. Then I'll come back to those gems, going in with a light blue green, again from Vallejo, just hitting the innermost part of the gem, and this is going to sell kind of like a glowing effect. And then I come in with a white after that, just in the center of those gems to really give like a bright light emanating from the middle of them. So here's how we're looking with all of those base coats and highlights now done for the armor and the rest of the body. So I'm going to come in with a Cadian flesh tone and start to do the heads now. Going to the faces, I want a kind of solid overall base coat, not too thick to hide any of the details, but thick enough that none of those first layers are showing through. We'll highlight it later. I don't really need the zenithal or the dry brushing, but they do help to differentiate details while I'm painting. After that, we're coming in with Kislev flesh, and this is where the highlighting occurs. So for skin tones, I don't like to do very thick highlights. I'm almost just stippling this next color on very transparently, just to give the kind of subtle nature that skin can have as colors shift, as light changes. So being very gentle here and then giving it a really natural highlight. When the faces are done, I can move on to the hair. I didn't cover all of them here, but basically I'm highlighting these the same way I did the cloak earlier, giving it a lot of movement and variation, coming in with, you know, a dark brown and then highlighting it up to almost like a blonde color, just to sell, you know, a rich kind of healthy hair, I guess. Again, I apologize for this out of focus shot. What I'm doing here is coming in with a off-white and just painting the eyeballs, and we'll come in later with a flat black and just pick out some pupils. Just because of my camera setup, like I mentioned before, I'm not able to do this very well, but hopefully that'll change in the future. So moving on to the bases, I'm coming in with this deep sea blue. This is one of my favorite paints from the Vallejo model range, and this will serve as that first base coat for all of these sort of blocks of ice or frozen stones, I guess. But yeah, we'll go all over with this. Then we're coming with a light turquoise, and we're going to be dry brushing this on. This is going to be almost like an overbrush. I'm not getting the brush completely dry before I start dry brushing, and really trying to get all over this so that that deep sea blue is only in the utmost recesses. This unlabeled paint is from the Reaper paint line, and I don't remember what it's called, but it's a really nice light blue, but you could use any light blue here. Again, this is just going to be a dry brushing, coming in over less area than I covered on the last one, but still getting a lot of these rocks with this dry brushing. And then to finish off, we're doing a cold white, and this is only going to hit the highest edges of these rocks, again giving it that frozen look. Now normally this would be the last step, but because I don't want to paint any of the white snow I'm putting on later on, I'm going to start with the base trims now and going all over the model with that flat black. Now we can move on to the snow. So I'm using a soft flake snow from Woodland Scenics, some super gloss heavy gel, some PVA glue, and some white paint. Mixing that up, and you get something that kind of looks like this. There's no really good ratio to do this. I added water to give mine a little bit more flow and make it a little bit more malleable while I'm working with it. And this just gets applied with an old brush. Definitely don't use a newer brush for this. An old beat up brush, and just all over the base. I'm also going to be making sure to hit their boots as if they've been walking through the snow for some time, and covering up a little bit of the last step by doing the tops of the rocks to get that kind of windswept snow look. This is a really harsh cold environment they're in. Okay, right before we get into the final reveals here, again, I apologize for some of the bad footage in this video, but just know it will get better. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so on patreon.com. Keep making. Links will be in the description below. Follow me on Instagram, keep_making. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see what other videos I'm working on in the future. And without any further ado, let's get into the final reveals. That'll do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for checking it out. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. If you're an Eldar Baddie, let me know down in the comments below, and hit me up on Instagram. And support me on Patreon if you so choose. It goes a long way, helps me keep everything stocked up in the shop here, and allows me to keep making these videos. Thank you for everyone who's done so already. Yeah, again, on Instagram, I have a bunch of the miniatures I've already painted. I don't cover them a lot yet on this channel. Getting more into it now, and hopefully with better setups and everything like that. But if you want to see what I've already painted, I got a lot of cool stuff on the IG, so keep_making on IG. And thanks a lot for checking this video, guys. We'll see you next time.